For families starting a residential care journey, one of the biggest challenges is often not understanding care, but also understanding how funding for care actually works. Most people assume there's one simple system, where in fact there is not. So the purpose of this video is just to really give you a brief overview of the funding options so that at least you know the right types of questions to ask as you progress along this journey. So first off, we'll start with local authority or council funding. For someone moving into residential or nursing care, care fees are usually paid in one of two ways: by the local authority, often called council funding, or privately, where you're known as a self-funder. In England, if someone has assets over £23,250, they're usually classed as a self-funder, and those assets include the value of any property as well. Below that, the local authority may contribute, following a means-tested financial assessment. A common question is, what happens if I have an elderly parent who owns their own home, but they don't have effectively ready cash to pay for their care? There are two important options to be aware of. The first is what's called a 12-week property disregard. For the first 12 weeks of a permanent move into care, the value of the home may be ignored by the council. This is intended to give families breathing space and not force immediate decisions. The second option is what's called a deferred payment agreement with the council. This usually allows care fees to be deferred and settled later, usually from the value of a property when it's sold. The key point when you're having discussions with a social worker or the local council is that these options exist, and families shouldn't feel rushed into selling a home without understanding them. The next option I'd like to talk about is NHS funding. Unlike local authority funding, NHS funding is not means tested. Firstly, there is NHS funded nursing care, often called FNC. This applies only to nursing homes, and it's a weekly contribution, currently £254.06, paid directly to the nursing home, and it's based on assessed nursing need. So the person coming into a nursing home has to require medical treatment from a nurse in order to qualify. The second NHS option is what's called NHS Continuing Healthcare or CHC funding. If approved, the full cost of care is paid directly by the NHS. CHC funding is based on primary health need, not diagnosis or finances. Decisions are made through a formal NHS assessment process. CHC funding is often discussed around hospital discharge, but it deserves a separate detailed explanation, which I'll cover in a future video. So, in simple terms, there are four main funding routes: privately funded, local authority funded, NHS funded nursing care, FNC, and NHS Continuing Healthcare, CHC. So as you can see, funding is quite complex, but good care homes, social workers and hospital discharge teams should help you navigate this, and decisions should never be rushed without explanation. If you found this helpful, please do subscribe, and thanks again for watching.